it's Rain again, and I'm going to be continuing to read The Phantom TollBooth by Norton Juster. This is chapter 3, entitled Welcome to Dictionopolis. You must excuse my gruff conduct, the watchdog said, after they'd been driving for some time. But you see, it's traditional for watchdogs to be ferocious. Milo was so relieved at having escaped the doldrums that he assured the dog that he bore him no ill will. In fact, was very grateful for the assistance. Splendid, shouted the watchdog. I'm very pleased. I'm sure we'll be great friends for the rest of the trip. You may call me Talk. That is a strange name for a dog who goes tick, 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 tick all day long, said Milo. Why don't they call you? Don't say it, gasped the dog, and Milo could see a tear well up in his eye. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, said Milo, not meaning to hurt his feelings. That's quite all right, said the dog, getting a hold of himself. It's a long story, and a sad one, but I can tell it to you now. When my brother was born, the first pup in the family, my parents were overjoyed and immediately named him Tick in expectation of the sound they were sure he'd make. Upon first winding him, they discovered to their horror that, instead of going tick, 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 he went tock, 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 tock. They rushed to the Hall of Records to change the name, but it was too late. It had already been officially inscribed, and nothing could be done. When I arrived, they were determined not to make the same mistake twice, and since it seemed logical that all their children would make the same sound, they named me Talk. Of course, you know the rest. My brother is called Tick because he goes talk, 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 and I am called Talk because I go tick, 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 tick. And both of us are forever burdened with the wrong names. My parents were so overwrought that they gave up on having any more children and devoted their lives to doing good work among the poor and hungry. But how did you become a watchdog? Interjected Milo, hoping to change the subject, as Talk was sobbing quite loudly now. That, he said, rubbing a paw in his eye, is also traditional. My family have always been watchdogs, from father to son, since time began. You see, he continued, feeling a little better, once there was no time at all, and people found it very inconvenient. They never knew whether they were eating lunch or dinner, and they were always missing trains. So time was invented to help them keep track of the day and get to the places they needed to go. When they began to count all the time that was available, what with 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, and 36 days in a year, it seemed as though there was much more than could ever be used. If there's so much of it, it couldn't be very valuable, was the general opinion, and it soon fell into disrepute. People wasted it and even gave it away. Then we were given the job of seeing that no one wasted time again, he said, saying up proudly, It is a hard work, but a noble calling, for you see, he was now standing on the seat, one foot on the windshield, shouting with his arms outstretched, It is our most valuable possession, more precious than diamonds. It marches on, it and tide wait for no man, and at that point in the speech, the car hit a bump in the road, and the watchdog collapsed in a heap on the front seat with his alarm ringing furiously. Are you all right? Said Milo. Oomph, grunted Talk. Sorry to get carried away like that, but I think you get the point. As they drove along, Talk continued to explain the importance of time, quoting old philosophers and poets and illustrating each point with gestures that brought him perilously close to tumbling headlong from the speeding automobile. Before long, they saw in the distance the towers and flags of Dictionopolis sparkling in the sunshine. Driving towards Dictionopolis. And in a few moments, they reached the Great Wall and stood at the gateway to the city. Ahem! Roared the gateman, clearing his throat and snapping smartly to attention. This is Dictionopolis, a happy kingdom, advantageously located in the foothills of confusion and caressed by gentle breezes from the sea of knowledge. Today, by royal proclamation, is market day. Have you come to buy or sell? I beg your pardon, said Milo. Buy or sell, repeated the gateman impatiently. Which is it? You must have come here for a reason. Well, began Milo. Come on now, if you don't have a reason, you must have an explanation, or certainly an excuse, interrupted the gateman. Milo shook his head. Very serious, said the gateman, shaking his head also. Can't get in without a reason. He thought for a moment and then continued. Wait a minute. I might have one, an old one you can use. He took a battered suitcase from the gatehouse and began to rummage busily through it, muttering to himself. No, this won't do. No. Oh, this is fine, he yelled triumphantly, holding up a small medallion on a chain. He dusted it off, and engraved on one side were the words, Why not? Oh, then why not? That's a perfectly good reason for almost anything. Bit used, perhaps, but still quite serviceable. With that, he placed it on Milo's neck, pushed back the heavy iron gate, bowed low, and motioned them into the city. I wonder what the market will be like, thought Milo as they drove through the gate. But before there was time for an answer, they had driven into an immense square crowded with long lines of stalls heaped with merchandise and decorated in gay color bunting. Overhead, a large banner proclaimed, Welcome to the Word Market. From across the square, 5 very tall, thin gentlemen dressed regally in silks and satins, plumed hats, and buckled shoes rushed up to the car, stopped short, mopped 5 brows, caught 5 breaths, unrolled 5 parchments, and began talking in turn. Greetings, salutations, welcome, good afternoon, hello. Milo nodded his head, and they went on, reading from their scrolls. By order of Azaz the Unabridged, King of Dictionopolis, Monarch of Letters, Emperor of Phrases, Sentences, and miscellaneous figures of speech, we offer you the hospitality of our kingdom, country, nation, state, commonwealth, realm, empire, principality. Do all those words mean the same thing? Gasped Milo. Certainly, of course, precisely, exactly. Yes, they replied in order. Well then, said Milo, not understanding why each one said the same thing in a slightly different way. Wouldn't it be simpler just to use one? It would entirely make more sense. Nonsense! Ridiculous! Fantastic! Absurd! Bosh! They chorused again and continued. We're not interested in making sense. It's not our job. Besides, explained the second, one word is as good as another, so why not use them all? Then you don't have to choose which is right, advised the third. Besides, sighed the fourth, if one is right, then 10 or 10 times is right. Obviously, you don't know who we are, sneered the fifth, and they presented themselves one by one as the Duke of Definition, the Minister of Meaning, the Earl of Essence, the Count of Continence, and Undersecretary of Understanding. Milo acknowledged the introduction, and as talk growled slowly, the minister explains, We are the king's advisors, or in more formal terms, his cabinet. Cabinet, recited Duke. 1. A small private room or closet encased with drawers, etc., for keeping valuables and displaying curiosities. 2. Council room for chief ministers of state. 3. a body of official advisors to the chief executive of a nation. You see, continued the minister, bowing thankfully to the Duke, Dictionopolis is the place where all the words in the world come from. They're grown right here in our orchards. The ministers and a singular minister. I didn't know words grew on trees, said Milo timidly. Where did you think they grew? Shouted the Earl irritably. A small crowd had begun to gather to see the little boy who didn't know letters grew on trees. I didn't think they grew at all, admitted Milo, even more timidly. Several people shook their heads sadly. Well, money doesn't grow on trees, does it? Demanded the Count. I've heard not, said Milo. Then something must. Why not words? Exclaimed the undersecretary triumphantly. The crowd cheered his display of logic and continued about its business. To continue, continued the minister importantly, once a week, by royal proclamation, the word market is held here in the great square, and people come from everywhere to buy the words they need or trade in the words they haven't used. Our job, said the Count, is to see that all the words are sold are proper ones, for it wouldn't do to sell someone a word that had no meaning or didn't exist at all. For example, if you bought a word like glux, where would you use it? It would be difficult, thought Milo, but there were so many words that were difficult, and he hardly knew any of them. But we never choose which ones to use, exclaimed the Earl as they walked towards the market stalls. As long as they mean what they're meant to mean, we don't care if they make sense or nonsense. Innocence or magnificence, added the Count. Reticence or common sense, said the undersecretary. It seems simple enough, said Milo, trying to be polite. Easy as falling off a log, cried the Earl, falling off a log with a large thumb. Must you be so clumsy? Shouted the Duke. All I said was, began the Earl, rubbing his head. Off a log. We heard you, said the minister angrily. You'll have to find an expression that's less dangerous. The Earl dusted himself off as the others snickered audibly. You see, continued the Count, you must pick your words very carefully and be sure to say what you intend to say. And now we must leave to make preparations for the royal banquet. You'll be there, of course. Before Milo had a chance to say anything, they were rushing off across the square as fast as they had come. Enjoy yourself in the market, shouted back the undersecretary. Market, recited the Duke. An open space or covered building in which... And that was the last Milo heard as they disappeared into the crowd. I never knew words could be so confusing, said Milo to Talk as he bent down to scratch the dog's ear. Only when you use a lot to say a little, answered Talk. Milo thought this was the wisest thing he'd heard all day. Come, he shouted, let's see the market. It looks very exciting. Okay, that's the end of chapter 3. I'll continue chapter 4 in the next video. Thank you.